Before mechanization and giant saws, builders had to pull gnarly boulders out of the earth and manually square them before carving any intricate designs. The host here is using Portland limestone, a favorite among masons. Why? Historically, stonemasonry was a deadly trade due to silica dust, which causes scar tissue to build up in the lungs, leading to silicosis. But Portland limestone contains a remarkably low 0.03% silica, making it much safer to carve. It's a reminder that ancient tradesmen literally put their lives on the line to build the structures we admire today.
So back in the day, you would have pulled out a boulder out the ground, and before mechanization and they had saws, you would basically have to get that rough piece of stone and you would have to turn it into a flat square block before you even touched it with moldings. This is the thing that a lot of people don't consider, is that when you pull a stone out of the ground, it doesn't come out the ground a perfect cube. It comes out the ground a gnarly piece of... So there's a process called boning in, where where you basically have to work out where each corner of the stone's going to be, so it's not on a twist when you work a flat plane on it. That will make more sense as I'll show you. But for the moment, let's ruin this piece of stone and make it look horrible. Safety specs are a must. I'm just going to take my hammer and my pitching tool, and I'm just going to pitch the edges down so we haven't got a clean edge to draw a line on. Right. You go, why are you doing that? Well, I'm basically just trying to simulate a rough block here.
Here's the lost art, boning in.
And then I'm going to come in.
Because a rough stone has no true flat surface, you must invent one. The Romans and Greeks used similar techniques, sometimes called winding sticks, to achieve flawless structural integrity. By carving four-corner pockets and placing perfectly identical blocks inside them, you establish a universal plane above the chaos of the raw stone.
So here we've basically simulated a rough cube that you get out of the quarry. Our first step is to work a pocket in each corner that's big enough for a boning block. What is a boning block, you ask? Oh, so there was something I did forget on the old tool list, and that's boning blocks. So I was talking about boning blocks. These are makeshift boning blocks. Basically, boning blocks, you can make them out of wood, you can have them made out of metal. All they need to be is exactly the same size. I've cut 40mm pieces of 40 by 40 box section, so I can use these as boning blocks. Essentially what we're going to do now is we are going to cut a pocket in all four corners, because remember, if this was a rough boulder, we wouldn't know what a flat plane is. So we need to cut pockets in the corners, and so we can place these boning blocks on the corners and work out how twisted the stone is. This will make sense as we go along. So one mallet, one 1-inch chisel, and I'm just gonna roughly chop in a pocket in the corner.
This is ancient geometry in action. Our ancestors didn't have lasers, they had their eyes. By sighting down two parallel straight edges, the human eye can easily detect if the stone is in twist, meaning one corner sits higher than the rest. Once those edges align perfectly, the mason knows the four corners exist on the exact same plane. The foundation is set.
Right, now I've got a pocket in each corner that I've just roughly eyeballed in. What we need now is we need two straight edges. So one straight edge, and I'll grab another one off of here. And then we need two chisels. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a chisel. We're going to pop this straight edge on top of these two boning blocks and just put a chisel up like that. That's holding this straight edge in place on top of the boning blocks. Then we do exactly the same thing on the other side. I'm going to look from this end at the two straight edges, and I'm going to bring my eyes, close one eye, bring my eyes down to see whether these straight edges are twisted like this. Look, I'll show you. As you bring your eyes down, you can see they are not parallel. Does that make sense? as I bring this down, you can see this side disappears before that side does. So we know that that side on the back is too high. So now I'm going to trim a little bit off of that pocket and see whether we can straighten them up again. Oh yeah, that's pretty good. We're about a mil or two too high in that back corner. I don't know whether you can tell from the camera, but just that right side's disappeared, but you can just see the left side still sticking up just a tiny little bit. Right, let's hope third time's a charm. Let's hope we do it this time. So, oh, that's bang on. Perfect, bang on. So we know that now there's no twisting between these. So as long as we do a straight draft from here to here, here to here, here to here, and here to here, then we've created a flat plane. Does that make sense?
With the corners established, the mason works inward on a diagonal, never striking outward off an edge to prevent the stone from blowing out. Look at the monkey grip he uses on the chisel. It allows for constant micro adjustments. This tactile feedback is something machines completely isolate us from today. Peeling the stone back in precise layers requires a mastery of material reaction that only comes from hours of hand tool discipline.
2 points. So we'll go again. Alright, there's a big high spot here. Almost. We're within a millimetre by hand, just that quick draft. Like I say, there's a little bit of a wobble, so I might just take that little tiny high spot off right here. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. Now we need to take out some of this material out the middle. And what we're going to do to use to do that is this punch. So it is a hammer-headed punch. I've just given it a sharpen, a nice little flat end on it. You want to give your hammer a good swing. You don't want to be holding your hammer up here and giving it really light taps, yeah? You want to be holding your hammer near the end of the shaft, and you want to be giving it good, proper hits. Right, so we're going to start here. Resetting every time, make a hit, pull back, reassess, go in again. Right, there we go. So we've got a punch surface now. So this surface here is approximately about 5 mil. Oh, that's a bit more than 5 mil. But yeah, between like 5 and 7 mil above your finished surface. The closer you get with each process to the line, the easier it makes the next process, if that makes sense. So if this was, you know, like still 15 mil off or something, then the reality is that you have to get closer in order for you to make the clawing process, which is now what we're going to do, easier. This claw chisel has got all these grooves in it and acts as, you know, a series of these, but in a nice straight line. So what we're going to do, we're going to follow the same right to left as we did with the punching, but we're going to do it with this claw chisel now. Like so. Now I have plucked under here with my punching. It's not ideal, but then again, you know, I haven't done this in a very long time, so give me a break. Jesus. Right, so this clawing really wants to be about 2 mil off of your finished flat surface. So I'm now offering this straight edge up against here. I'm evening out the gaps on either side, and then that will show me where my high spots are. So we're still a ways off yet. Oh dear, sorry, it's cold. It's very cold out at the moment, my nose is running. So we'll kind of come back in again with this claw chisel, try and take off those high spots. I need to just do exactly the same thing, but now to the line, using not the claw chisel, but this 2-inch bolster, or boaster. It's a little bit blunt actually, so I'm just going to give it a quick sharpen. Really nice and sharp now. And we're going to our line, to our line, to our line. So you want to come in at the same angle again. We're going at a slight angle, and we're just really gently taking those claw marks off and pulling it back, making minor adjustments with every hit. So this is pretty much there now. So if I put a straight edge in it this way, no light, right? And then we go this way, no light. Okay?
To find the final imperfections, the mason rubs wax crayon on a straight edge. The wax transfers only to the highest peaks of the stone, giving him a visual map of what to knock down.
What I'm going to do now is I am going to get a little bit of grease chalk, also known as wax crayon. If you put a bit of grease chalk on it like that, a bit of wax crayon, yeah, so it's got wax crayon on the end, then what you can do is you can lightly just pass over your stone like that, and it's not taking any of the steel off of your straight edge, it's just rubbing the wax crayon off, and then you can see where I'm high. So what I'm going to do now is use a hammer, but I'm going to hold it like a dummy. If you've got a dummy, that's probably better. Yeah, if you've got a hammer, you could hold your hammer like that, and it acts as a really nice heavy dummy. And so you can just lightly pull it over like this, take all those high spots off, get rid of all the wax crayon basically, and it will leave it with a really nice surface finish. Yeah? Cool. Right. So, I started that at 3:30. And I've also had to film it and probably do way more chatting than I would do otherwise. It is currently 5:15. So that means it's taken me less than 2 hours to do that flat surface by hand, boning it in and everything. So, I'm now going to get a grinder, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing and show you the difference between working by hand and working with power tools, and the reason as to why we work with power tools. It's 18 minutes past 7. Right? Let's go. Right, the time is now 22 minutes past 5. So that took 4 minutes. So that's just a heads up to, you know, the people who say...
From start to finish, squaring this block by hand took under 2 hours. A modern grinder, 4 minutes.
To do everything you can do with a grinder and with pneumatics by hand. Hand tool skills are absolutely essential. You should always start off by learning by hand, and then as you get the hang of that, then move on to using power tools and pneumatics. So, I hope this has been...
But mastering the hand tools first isn't just about nostalgia. It builds the foundational understanding of the material. You can't innovate the future if you don't understand the mechanics of the past. Thanks for tuning in to the OmniFuture channel. We'd love your sub and a like to get this optimistic message out to more people. Skills and culture of the past give us hope and purpose for the future. See you next time.